How do you create an epoxy finish using paint and water? Stay tuned, and I'm gonna show you how to do it. All right, we're going to show you a very unconventional way to create a piece of very realistic looking slate. I love this technique. It does take a little more time, and you'll see why, but it is absolutely amazing. So let's get started. All right, so I have my sample board, and I have painted it with 2 coats of the latex paint, bare, and just white. Now you can also use the stone coat countertop undercoating, do the same thing. So what I've done though, is I've taken latex paint and I've mixed it with water 50-50. So I have a very runny solution here. Don't leave, I haven't lost my mind. Hang on. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna create some undertones to this finish. So what I have is I've got some hammered gray paint from Rust-Oleum, and we're just gonna kind of come in here and start adding some undertones. This is actually Rust-Oleum light blue hammered paint. And like I said, guys, this is just undertone painting, so don't overthink it. Make sure I get my front edge. All right, now I'm gonna come in with metallic charcoal, which is gonna be a little darker. And again, this is up to you how dark and what colors that you use. Doesn't matter what type of the paint you use. You can use a regular gloss paint. You can even use a matte paint. This, at this point, doesn't matter. All right, so I do want to say this. Make sure if you're not in a well-ventilated room that's large, that you wear a mask. Take care of your lungs. I'm not wearing a mask because I'm on camera, but when I do this on my own for a client, we always make sure we mask up. All right, so next what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in with isopropyl alcohol mixed with mica powders. And this happens to be a silver mica powder. We're building layers upon layers upon layers of color. You can even come in here, put you some veins. Like I said, this is all gonna be background noise. All right, I think I'm actually gonna come in with some white just to kind of give some highlights really quick, bring that white back up to the top. I'm gonna let this dry just a couple of minutes, let that alcohol evaporate, then we're gonna go to the next step. All right, so now we have our bucket of 50-50 paint to water. Now is where I get crazy. All right, so we're gonna start pouring this out. Come in with our roller, and we're gonna just start kind of bringing it over. All right, so I wanna just kind of keep adding the water until I have a pretty good coverage. I don't want it to be thin. I'm not painting the surface. I'm just kind of pushing this water around. All right, so I'm gonna push this over the edge, kind of run it. Not really worried, doesn't have to be perfect. All right, and I want enough water so that it has standing water, okay? That's what we're kind of going for, is standing water, not just a thin paint over the surface. Now we're gonna start adding more colors over the top. So I'm gonna come back with my spray paint. Same thing, I'm just layering that color, and you're gonna start seeing this spray paint react with this water. And I'm gonna come in here with this alcohol. And you can always go back. You can layer as you spray. You can spray, and then you can layer, and you can spray some more. This is where it's just gonna get a lot of fun. All right, I think I'm gonna add, I know this is crazy, and I know this is more of a silvery type of a finish, but I'm gonna add a little bit of gold, not much. And then I'm gonna hit it with some just clear alcohol. That just gives me one more layer of interest and some color. All right, I'm gonna give you a pro tip. Because we're using water and paint 50-50, it's gonna be very, very runny. So if you are doing this in home, on site, you're gonna have to really prep your overhang, your countertops, and your floor, because it's a potential for this to really run and make a mess. So just prep correctly and you'll have no issues. What do y'all think? This could not be a finish on its own. We're gonna have to let all of this water evaporate. So I'm done for now. We'll come back tomorrow once all the water has evaporated and we'll go to the next step. Okay, it's the next day. Everything is dry. Let's talk about what we have. I think I may have put a little bit too much water. I did 100% coverage with my water. I should have left some little open voids. And the only reason I say that is I'm not getting as much of the background that I really wanted. So when you guys do this, leave some voids of where your water is, and that way your background will kind of show through. Now, saying that, I'm perfectly okay with that because I'm going to show you guys how we can fix it. Right here is where I really want to put some interest. It's kind of boring and I want to fix it. Then I have a place over here, it's a circle, where I had dropped some alcohol and I just don't like the way it looks. So we're going to kind of play with that. So I'm going to come in with my metallic charcoal. You can use any color that you want. And I'm just going to start adding some depth here. All right, so I'm going to get my alcohol. And anywhere where I think maybe I need a little bit of a design, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create some cool effects. Now I'm going to grab my alcohol that's got the silver metallic in it. Yeah, I like that. And I'm going to create some look. And then you can also go back over that alcohol. All right, I like that. I'm going to come in, add a little bit of white to kind of highlight. Now, if you get really thick with your white paint, like I'm going to do right here, and then you hit it with some alcohol, it will kind of cause some neat designs on your finish. So I'll do that. I'll come a little bit thicker here, add a little bit of alcohol. And then a good thing also is, let's say you put something on the surface and you didn't like it. Come in with a paper towel, scrunch it up, and you can play with it and add some cool detail as well. Now I kind of like that actually, since I did it, because that's going to kind of ghost through to the next level. Remember, we're still working on background, guys. That's all this is background noise. All right, I like that. Okay, now I'm going to come in and add a couple of our fun spray paint Montana marble, which is going to give us very organic veins. Okay, so I'm going to come up nice and high. Very little. I don't want a lot of this time. I just want a little bit. Now, the thing about this is you have to suggest to it where you want it to go, because you can't make it go anywhere. You just have to kind of hold it up high, flip your wrist, and pray for the best. So I'm going to do the same thing with my white. All right, this is really adding some really cool depth. I like that. All right, good. All right, we're gonna let this dry and go mix up some epoxy. We have Stone Coat countertop. I'm doing art coat. This is a light finish, and I'm doing 3 ounces per square foot. Everything is dry here on the surface. Now, what I'm not gonna do is use a trowel to trowel this out. I'm gonna use my hand, just because I want to be very careful with the Montana marble spray that I have down. If you have a really large area and you do want to use a trowel, that's fine. Just be very mindful of what you have on the surface now. All right, so we'll pour this out. All right. I like to torch just a little bit before I use my hand to spread it out. I feel that by warming it up just a bit really does help me spread. When I spread with my hand, I kind of cup it. That way I can kind of push it where it needs to go. I'll push it to my edge. Not going to push it quite off the edge yet. If you're doing this in a cooler environment, it does help to slightly heat your epoxy in front of a space heater, or you can put it on a warming mat, whatever works best. But understand, if you do add heat prior to, that does shorten your open time just a little bit. All right, I'm gonna come around the front. I really wanna make sure with this product that I push it over the edge, run my hand up under the edge with my fingers so I can help that epoxy roll under. All right, everything's spread out. I made sure I don't have any surface tension. The board is 100% covered. We'll do a quick torch. All right, when you torch, you'll notice I very seldom ever torch my edges. Torching your edges, actually torching any of it, causes your epoxy to get very fluid. So we already know that the edges are very thin because it's a vertical surface. So by torching your edges too much, you're gonna get all that product just to run off. So be very mindful of that. All right, so now we have a nice, pretty, clear coat, and we can play with that now. All right, so I'm gonna come over and I wanna darken this up in just certain areas, not all the area. So I'm gonna come in here with my charcoal gray. And then, because I don't wanna put too much alcohol on it at once, I'm gonna do both of these colors at the same time. So when I do go back over with my alcohol, I can knock it out all in one step. Okay, so here we go. I've got my white, my charcoal gray, and have a little bit of black if I decide I wanna warm something up with that black. Coming over here with my white. Some areas will be really thick and opaque. Being very mindful where you place that, not to cover up any of that we already have as our background. All right, I've got that. Coming in with our dark charcoal, kind of do the same thing, certain areas. Actually, that was black, but I kind of like it actually. Now I'm gonna come over with the dark charcoal. See, anybody can do this, y'all. I like that. Now I'm gonna come over with a little bit of silver with the mica powder. And the reason I'm kind of hurrying is I don't want this spray paint to start drying on the surface, because that will happen. Now I'm gonna come in with plain, because I don't wanna add any more color to that surface. And I'll just start hitting it kind of where I think I need to put it. Now it looks like I'm putting a lot of alcohol. I'm really not. I'm barely squeezing the trigger. Now I'm gonna let this set a good 5 minutes. We'll reevaluate and see if we need to add some more. All right, guys, so I let this set for just a little bit. I let the alcohol and the spray paint kind of duke it out, and I love it. This could be a finish all on its own, but I'm gonna show you how to kind of take it to the next level if you want to. I love mica flakes. Now these are the bigger flakes. That's not a glitter. It's a little bit bigger mica flake, and they'll have a tendency to want to kind of float on the surface. I'm gonna put just a little of these, just a few of them, sprinkle them very randomly over the top, and then we'll be applying our last flood coat, and really will bring in a little bit of that depth. So I'm just sprinkling them. Now, if you go look at real stone, sometimes those flakes will be in just one area. Sometimes they'll be throughout the stone. That's your call. I'm just gonna kind of sprinkle them ever so often. Ooh, I got a big blob on there, and that's fine, because our next coat of epoxy will lay all of that down flat. All right, I like that. Now, if I were to go over the top now with more spray paint, you have to be very careful, because you could actually paint those mica flakes, and we don't want to do that. If you do want to add a few more details, what you can do is come in and tap those flakes down, kind of push some of them down. Some of them will stay at the top, and that'll just kind of help them sink and also make sure that they're flat. I can see already that mine are starting to sink down. This is just gonna let me be able to go in, and if I wanted to add, say, some more spray paint or something like that, I could do that, and it would kind of be over the top and almost cause a little bit of depth, which I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna add a little bit of spray paint, not a lot, guys, just a little. I'm gonna come in with my white and my clear alcohol. Just wanna soften some of these harder lines up that I got with my darker paint. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Maybe just a little bit. Now that's only because I wanted to lighten this finish up. You definitely don't have to do that. All right, I love it. All right, guys, so I think because I can, because this is my video, I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna add a couple more things to the surface. I love how the Montana Marble Spray is ghosting up through the finish. And now, because I really want this piece to have depth, I'm gonna come add just a little bit more, just on the top, a little bit. Just to make it, oh, I love that. How that one kind of goes through there. I'm gonna add a little more over here in the corner. That's perfect. All right, it's just a hint. And because we have so much going on and it's going over wet epoxy, as the epoxy moves, it's gonna kind of break up the Montana Marble Spray a little more than it did when we did it with no epoxy, if that makes sense. So you're gonna get a little bit different look by putting on top of wet epoxy. So I like that so much, I'm gonna do it with the white as well. Yes. Beautiful. All right, that's it. That was the touch that I needed to just kind of bring all of this up where I wanted it. All right, guys, so what we'll do is in 24 hours, we'll let this dry and we'll come back with a clear flood coat. See you tomorrow. All right, it's been 24 hours. The top is dry, and now we're gonna do a quick sanding so that we can get the flood coat. All right, you'll notice that the little flakes that we added are randomly laying on top of the surface. Some of them you can actually feel, and some of them are kind of turning sideways, so they poke up just a little bit. That's not an issue. I'm gonna lightly sand it. I'm not gonna try to sand it completely flat if they're at an angle. Our flood coat is gonna take care of that as long as it's not sticking up too high. So I'll give it a quick sand and we'll go mix up our flood coat. All right, so as you see, as I'm sanding, I'm taking down any of these imperfections. Now here's a question that I get often. Sometimes we have bubbles come up that we don't catch, and they actually when you sand, it'll sand off the top of that bubble, and then that little divot will actually start catching the powder from the epoxy. What you want to do is make sure you clean that out so that when you pour your flood coat will fill that in and you'll never know that bubble was ever there. All right, so we're back with our flood coat. We've got 3 ounces per, what are you doing?
Nothing.
We've mixed up 3 ounces of our Stone Coat Countertop art coat, and we will apply to the surface. Now, there is some confusion. There's no need to tape your edges on a flood coat when you're using 3 ounces per square foot. We never tape our edges unless we're using at least 6 ounces or more. The reason we don't do that is at 3 ounces per square foot, when you tape your edges and let that epoxy start to set up, when you pull that tape, there's not enough product on the surface to help push the epoxy over the edge once it starts to thicken up. With more epoxy per square foot and you tape, when you pull that tape, now you have so much product that it's able to push the extra over the edge. So that's real important. If you want to use more epoxy for your flood coat, that's fine. Just make sure you use at least 6 or more in order to get a really pretty edge. Now, because when this was mixed, we scraped our edges and our bottom of the cup as we mixed, I know that all of this material inside this bucket is thoroughly mixed. Just in case, I like to go ahead and mix it a little bit more once I pour it out to ensure we don't have any sticky spots. All right, now I'll take this. Actually, what I like to do, especially if it's cooler, I like to go ahead and torch this just a little bit before I start to spread it out. My lovely assistant. This is my husband, not my son, just saying. Now, if you're doing a really large area, you can use a trowel and you can come back and chop with the chop brush. However, I really like to use my hand. I feel like I can get a really good level coverage. And also, I don't have to worry about having any kind of bristle left behind in my flood coat.
How about I help you out?
How about you help me out? You got long.
I can reach all the way over to the edge there.
I'm just fun size. I can't reach that far. It's super important that when you do the flood coat, that you take that epoxy, push it over the edge, and push it up under the edge. That will help the epoxy flow over. You're not going to have any surface tension, and you'll get really nice edges. You're awesome, babe.
I know.
So we'll come back, we'll torch 3 times, waiting about 3 to 5 minutes in between torching. Then we will turn all the lights off, turn the AC or any kind of airflow off. However, you need to make sure that your temperature stays above 70 degrees for the entire 24-hour cure process. By turning off the airflow, you're gonna make sure that you don't get waves. All right, so you'll notice we don't really torch our edges. Unless we see noticeable bubbles, try not to torch your edge. When you torch your edge, you're causing the epoxy to become very fluid, very thin, and it will run off. This is really pretty. It really brings in the depth. We do have a full tutorial on how to do a flood coat, and we will link it in the description of this video. What do you think? Let me know. This turned out so pretty. If you like this kind of video and you'd like to see more, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for future notifications. We are gonna hit 100,000 by this summer. I know we can do it with your help. Alrighty, guys, remember, don't be scared. Move forward and be creative. See you next week.
Adios.